I used to believe a single question couldn't break a family, but I was wrong. The night I asked my parents, "You have a college fund for me too?" Something inside our home cracked so loudly I swear the walls felt it. My name is Evan, I'm 17, and though I grew up in a house full of people who called themselves my family, I've spent most of my life feeling like a guest. My parents adopted me as an infant. After years of failed infertility treatments and heartbreak, my birth mother chose them. They loved telling the story, how my mom held my birth mother's hand during labor, how my dad cried when he saw me, how I was the miracle they had waited years to hold. But I don't remember any of that. What I remember is the shift that came 3 years later, when my sister Sophia was born. Suddenly the miracle they really wanted had arrived, one that shared their eyes, their hair, their smile. A perfect biological blend of both of them. I don't know if they always treated me different or if things changed after she was born, but as far back as I can remember, I was simply less. Not unloved, just less loved. Sophia was adored. She was spoiled, cherished, showered in nicknames like Little Sweetheart and Baby Star. There were pictures of her everywhere, on the mantle, on the fridge, in new frames my parents bought just for her milestones. I had photos too, of course, just fewer, tucked into corners rather than displayed front and center. My cousins, who were mean enough to know exactly where to poke, would whisper things like, "Your real parents are somewhere else," or "Your mom and dad have their real kid now," and even if they could send you back, they would. Adults brushed it off as kids being kids, but nobody told them to stop. Nobody said the quiet part out loud, that their words hurt because they felt true. As I got older, the differences became impossible to ignore. Sophia got cuddles on the couch during movie nights. I sat on the other end. She got extravagant birthday gifts. I got something practical. She got special mom and dad days. I got maybe next time. When I finally worked up the courage to tell my parents I felt left out, they didn't get angry, but they didn't comfort me either. They just blinked, nodded, and changed the subject, as if my hurt was an interruption. Sophia noticed too, and she used it like a weapon. She'd say she wished she had a real sibling and not a fake one, or how our cousins were her real family and I wasn't. She was younger than me, but she already knew the power of being the chosen one. She didn't say it to be cruel. She said it because she thought it was simply the truth. Everything came crashing down a year ago when I overheard my parents talking to my aunt about the massive college fund they'd built for Sophia. Investments, savings, years of planning. I stood frozen just outside the doorway, waiting for them to mention me too. They didn't. Not once. I tried to tell myself there was a reason, that maybe they just didn't bring it up at that moment, that maybe it was a surprise. But deep down, I already knew. At school, when counselors asked if I'd be receiving financial help from my parents, I never knew what to say. I'd shrug and pretend I wasn't embarrassed. Around that time, I also tried reaching out to my birth parents. My adoptive parents gave me their names and contact information. They said they expected I'd be curious someday. When I finally reached out, all I got back was a polite message saying they didn't want a relationship. My adoptive parents didn't comfort me. They simply said, "We expected that might happen." Meanwhile, Sophia, never missing a chance to twist the knife, smirked and said, "Wow, 4 parents and none want you? You must be broken." The final straw came 2 weeks ago when my parents told me to inform my guidance counselor that they were too busy to talk about college planning, so she should work directly with me. Too busy for their son's future. That was when the question I had held in my chest for months finally spilled out. I asked them if they had a college fund for me too. They froze, not with guilt or sadness, but with anger. "How do you know about that? Why are you asking questions that are none of your business?" None of my business, my life, my future, my worth. They didn't deny it. They didn't explain it. They just got angry I dared to ask. And in the silence that followed, I heard everything I needed to know. Sophia didn't miss the opportunity either. She spent every day since reminding me that she has a college fund and I don't. My parents still haven't said the actual words, but they don't need to. Their silence is the answer. And in that answer, I realized something devastatingly simple. I may live in this house, but I have never truly belonged here. The tension in the house after that question was like walking through a fog of broken glass. Quiet, sharp, and impossible to escape. No one talked about what happened, but the air carried the weight of everything left unsaid. My parents avoided me in small, noticeable ways. Dinner plates placed without eye contact. Conversations whispered in rooms I wasn't invited into. Doors closing a little too quickly when I walked by. Sophia, meanwhile, seemed to enjoy every moment of it. She'd hum cheerful little tunes whenever she walked past me or casually mention future colleges she wanted to tour, always loud enough for me to hear. "Mom and Dad said Yale is expensive," she'd say with an exaggerated sigh, "but luckily I have money saved. Right, Evan?" She never waited for me to answer. She didn't need to. I didn't know what hurt more, their silence or her voice. School became the only place where the walls didn't feel like they were closing in on me. But even there, the topic of college haunted me. Friends talked about scholarships, financial plans, majors they were excited for. I smiled and nodded, pretending I wasn't drowning. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Ellis, noticed. She asked me gently if everything was okay, if my parents had been able to discuss anything with her. When I told her they were too busy, she frowned in that way adults do when they want to say something but can't. She offered pamphlets, told me about financial aid, suggested starting applications early. I thanked her and left her office feeling like I couldn't breathe. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't rely on people who never planned for me. I needed to plan for myself. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen. I searched for scholarships, part-time jobs, anything. But everything required things I didn't have: perfect grades, leadership positions, specialized talents. I was average. I was tired. I was alone, and I was terrified. I tried to push it down, telling myself that plenty of kids figured it out on their own. That independence was a good thing. But independence hits different when it isn't a choice, when it's something forced on you because the people who were supposed to care didn't. Later that week, I overheard my parents talking again, this time behind their bedroom door, voices low but sharp enough to cut through. "He shouldn't have asked," my mom whispered. "He had no right." My dad sighed, and I could picture him rubbing his forehead. "We can't afford 2 college funds. We barely managed 1. A pause. "And Sophia is our responsibility." The words stabbed through the wood like they were meant for me. I wasn't their responsibility, not even enough to mention by name. I stood there frozen until their voices faded, then walked to my room feeling like someone had replaced my insides with stone. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat on my bed and stared at the wall because what else was there to do? I had finally heard the truth out loud. They weren't confused. They weren't overwhelmed. They made a choice, and it wasn't me. A few days later, the breaking point arrived. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that used to mean pancakes and lazy family time back when I was too young to know better. I walked into the kitchen and saw my parents at the table, sorting through envelopes, bills, statements, and one thick folder with Sophia's name printed neatly on the front. I could see handwritten notes, investment summaries, charts, decades of planning laid out like a shrine. I knew I shouldn't ask anything. Last time had already detonated everything. But I was tired of staying silent, tired of pretending not to notice, tired of being unwanted and acting grateful for the scraps. Taking a deep breath, I stepped closer. "Can you just tell me the truth?" I asked quietly. "Am I supposed to figure out college alone?" My mom stiffened immediately. My dad's jaw tightened. They exchanged a look, the kind I had seen 1,000 times, a look that said I was a problem, an inconvenience, something they didn't want to deal with. "You need to stop this," my mom said firmly, as if I was misbehaving. "We told you to stay out of things that don't concern you." "But it does concern me," I whispered. "I'm going to college. I need to know if—" "This conversation is over," my dad snapped, slapping the folder shut. "Don't bring it up again." Sophia, who had just walked in behind me, smirked as she reached into the fridge. "It's not that deep, Evan," she laughed, taking out a yogurt. "Just get loans like everyone else." Then she added under her breath, but loud enough for all of us to hear, "Besides, some of us are worth investing in." My parents didn't correct her. They didn't scold her. They didn't even flinch. They just sat there, quiet as she twisted the knife. In that silence, I felt something inside me collapse. Not anger. Not jealousy. Something deeper. A final understanding that no matter what I did, no matter how good I was, they were never going to choose me. And once I realized that, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I was waiting to leave. The next week felt like moving through deep water. Slow, heavy, suffocating. I went to school, ate dinner quietly, stayed in my room most of the time. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody noticed the way I barely spoke. Or maybe they noticed and chose to ignore it. Sometimes silence is its own answer. But after that moment in the kitchen, I stopped hoping for anything. The small part of me that used to believe things might get better finally gave up. I kept imagining my future, working full-time while taking night classes, drowning in debt before my life even started. Meanwhile, Sophia would glide through college with the cushion of a fund built lovingly over years. 2 kids raised under the same roof, but treated like completely different stories. One night, I sat at my desk trying, again, to fill out scholarship applications. I could barely focus. My stomach felt twisted, my mind buzzing with everything I wished I could say but never would. At some point, I shut the laptop and just sat there in the dark, the glow of my phone screen illuminating the room. I opened old pictures, me as a kid wearing a superhero cape, smiling with missing teeth, standing between my parents. In the photo, my mom's arm was wrapped around my shoulder. I stared at it, wondering when that version of her disappeared, or if she was never really there at all. Later that week, something happened at school that cracked the thin shell I'd been holding around myself. During a college prep workshop, everyone shared their plans, majors, universities, support systems. Someone asked if I was applying to the same college as my sister. I tried to laugh it off. "We're not exactly on the same plan," I said. But then one of the kids, someone who didn't mean any harm, asked, "Why not?" "Aren't you both getting help from your parents?" The room went quiet. Everyone stared at me, and for the first time, I didn't hide, I just said it. "My parents don't have a college fund for me." A few people looked confused. A couple looked stunned. Mrs. Ellis, who was in the room, gave me this soft, wounded expression, as if she'd been handed a puzzle she already knew the answer to but hoped she was wrong about. After the workshop, she pulled me aside. "Evan," she said quietly. Is everything okay at home? I don't know why, but the question hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because it was the first time anyone asked me directly. I swallowed, trying to hold myself together. It's fine, I'm fine. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. She just nodded slowly. If you ever need help navigating anything, school, financial aid, or anything else, you can come to me. I nodded and left before my voice cracked. When I got home that day, the house felt colder than usual. My parents were in the living room, talking quietly. Sophia was on the couch scrolling on her phone. Nobody greeted me. I went to my room, ready to disappear into homework, when I heard my dad call my name. We need to talk. Every muscle in my body tensed. I walked back to the living room, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My mom sat with her arms crossed, her expression tight. Sophia watched with an eager kind of curiosity, like she was waiting for a dramatic scene. My dad cleared his throat. Your counselor emailed us today. The room spun. I didn't need to hear more. I already knew. She said you told people at school we aren't helping you with college, my mom said sharply. Why would you say something so embarrassing? Embarrassing, not untrue, not hurtful. Not concerning, embarrassing. I felt heat build behind my eyes. Because you aren't, I said quietly. My mom's face tightened. You're twisting things. We never said that. You didn't have to, I replied. You refused to talk to me. You told me it wasn't my business. You never saved anything for me, but you saved for her. Sophia smirked slightly. My dad noticed and shot her a warning glance, but he didn't tell her to leave. Evan, my dad said, trying to sound calm. We did what we could. We weren't prepared to have 2 children going to college. You weren't prepared to have me, I whispered, more to myself than to them. My mom looked offended. That's unfair. We gave you a home. We raised you. We loved you. Loved. Past tense. Or maybe they never understood what the word meant. I took a shaky breath, staring at the carpet, because if I looked at their faces, I might break. You didn't treat me the same, I said quietly. You know you didn't. There was a long, suffocating silence, one that told me I was right. Finally, my dad exhaled slowly. We can't change the past, and we can't create money we don't have. Sophia's fund is already set. We can't split it now. So that's it, I asked. I get nothing. My mom frowned as if I was being unreasonable. You're almost an adult. Adults figure things out. You'll manage. Those words hit harder than anything else that night. Not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. They truly believed their responsibility ended with providing a roof and meals. Everything else, love, fairness, support, was optional. I nodded slowly, feeling something inside me shift, something heavy but strangely freeing. I realized that waiting for them to choose me was like waiting for a door that would never open. And once I realized that, I knew I had to stop knocking. After that conversation, something inside me finally settled, not in a peaceful way, but in a way that felt like the end of a long, exhausting storm. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt done. Done waiting for them to notice me. Done hoping they would change. Done pretending I wasn't hurt. My parents went back to their routines as if nothing had happened, and Sophia strutted around the house like she'd won a competition only she knew she was in. But I wasn't playing anymore. I spent the next week planning quietly. I started talking more to Mrs. Ellis at school. She helped me search for scholarships that didn't require perfect grades. Ones for first-generation college students, for adopted teens, for kids who faced unusual family circumstances. I didn't tell her everything, but she understood enough. She also suggested local part-time jobs that offered tuition assistance. For the first time in a long while, I felt a path forming in front of me, not paved or easy, but mine. I felt ownership of something. That alone gave me strength. One afternoon after school, Mrs. Ellis called me into her office. She handed me a stack of scholarship applications and said, Evan, you're not alone, even if it feels like it right now. Those words, so simple, so easy to say, hit harder than anything my parents had ever told me. She wasn't pretending to be my mother. She wasn't promising to fix everything. But she saw me. She cared in a way that didn't ask for anything in return. And sometimes, that's all a kid needs. Around that time, my friend Liam found me sitting behind the bleachers during lunch, filling out paperwork. He sat beside me without saying anything for a moment. Then he nudged me lightly and said, You know, you can talk to me too. I didn't even realize I'd told him nothing. I'd become so used to keeping everything inside that silence was automatic. But that day I told him, not everything, but enough. He listened without judgment, without pity. He said, That's messed up, man, but you're going to be okay. You're smarter and stronger than you think. Coming from someone who didn't owe me anything, it meant more than any compliment I'd ever gotten at home. At night, I started spending less time lying awake, feeling angry, and more time searching for opportunities. I found a small local program that offered mentorship for teens aging out of foster and adoptive homes. I wasn't technically aging out, but when I explained my situation, they welcomed me anyway. I met people my age, and older, who had stories like mine. Stories of being almost part of the family, of being treated like a guest in their own childhood, of being loved but not really loved. For the first time, I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel dramatic. I felt understood. Meanwhile, things at home became quieter, but not in a peaceful way. More like everyone was waiting for something to explode. I avoided the living room. My parents avoided me. Sophia made fewer comments, but when she did, they were sharp enough to cut. One night, she walked past my room, saw me filling out scholarship essays, and muttered, "Why are you even trying? You'll never make it." For the first time, her words didn't sting. They bounced off me. She wasn't my judge anymore. She wasn't my measurement of worth. She wasn't anything I needed to listen to. A week later, everything changed. It was a Sunday afternoon. My dad knocked on my door, something he rarely did, and asked me to come downstairs. My parents were sitting on the couch, looking unusually serious. Sophia was upstairs, thankfully. My mom folded her hands and said, "We've been thinking about what you said about the college fund." For a second, hope flickered in my chest, the old, naive hope that refused to die. But then my dad continued, "We can't change the financial situation, but we want to help in other ways." I waited. My dad cleared his throat. "We can let you stay here while you go to community college. You won't have to pay rent." That was it. That was their solution, a place to sleep. It wasn't generosity, it wasn't fairness, it wasn't love, it was convenience. They could say they helped without actually helping. Something inside me finally snapped into clarity. I smiled politely and said, "Thank you. I appreciate it." But inside, I knew the truth. I wasn't staying here a second longer than I needed to. From that moment on, I moved differently. I spoke less. I kept my head down, worked on my applications, asked for extra shifts at the library, applied for summer internships, saved every penny. Nobody noticed. But I did. And I felt proud of myself in a way I never had before, because everything I was building, every step forward, was mine. Not a gift, not a favor, not something I had to apologize for wanting. A month later, during breakfast, I received an email from the first scholarship program I applied to. I got it. It wasn't huge, but it covered my first semester of tuition. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I didn't announce it. I didn't run to my parents. I just sat there quietly, letting the joy fill me from the inside out. For once, I didn't need their applause. I had my own. That night, I printed the acceptance letter and taped it inside my closet door where only I could see it. A reminder I did this. I chose my future. The house still didn't feel like home, but something had changed. Not the walls, not my parents, me. I wasn't waiting for them to love me anymore. I wasn't begging for a place at their table. I wasn't hoping for a fund that was never meant for me. I was choosing myself. A few days later, I walked past the living room and overheard my parents bragging to a neighbor about Sophia's college plan. I didn't pause this time. I didn't shrink. I didn't ache. I simply kept walking, my acceptance letter folded in my back pocket like a shield. Maybe they would never see me. Maybe they would never choose me. But I finally understood something I wish I had known years ago. I am worth choosing. Even if the first people who should have chose me didn't. And that realization, painful, powerful, freeing, was the beginning of my real life. A life I would build myself. A life where I belonged. A life where being unwanted didn't mean being unworthy. Because sometimes, the family you come from fails you. But the family you build, teachers, friends, mentors, strangers who care, can save you. And sometimes, saving yourself is the bravest thing you ever do.